In this chapter, we discuss e-business. Let's kick off with the overview. We start from a general introduction. Then, we zoom into the economical impact. More specifically, we discuss the microeconomic impact, the impact on the value chain, and the strategic impact. E-business should be seen within the context of digital technologies. According to Gartner, digital technologies were previously often seen as sources of efficiency and productivity, whereas now digital technology for the first time moves into the forefront, into the heart of what the business is doing and how it generates revenue, seizes competitive advantage, and produces value. Hence, it is important to carefully invest in digital technologies and keep up with all kinds of emerging technologies such as the Internet of Things, wearables, and drones, since these typically create new opportunities for generating business value and staying competitive. Emerging technologies are no longer just enabling doing the same things faster and cheaper, but also changing the very way we conduct business. More specifically, according to Gartner, digital business entails the creation of new business designs by blurring the digital and physical world. The new business designs could relate to new kinds of products and services. Think of digital books or music as examples. New business models, think of Netflix, Amazon, and Google. And new industry models, think of online advertising as an example. Here you can see some further examples of blurring the digital and physical worlds. Physical products are more and more becoming smart and connected. Think of telematics, whereby cars are equipped with electronic devices monitoring their driving behavior, which is then directly transmitted to the insurance provider for calculation of the insurance premium. Think of software companies designing self-driving cars, which may also be connected so as to prevent car accidents from occurring. Or think of manufacturers collecting product performance data to help them do remote services and updates, such as Microsoft collecting information whenever a bug appears in any of their software products. The key point to remember here is that technology is no longer just enable doing the same things faster and cheaper, but also change the very way we conduct business. Different waves of business digitalization can be distinguished. The process of digitalization originated in the late 1990s, when companies started to use the web to sell online, which led to the subsequent rise of e-commerce. One of the first companies that started doing this was Amazon. From 2000 onwards, the web continued to transform businesses. With the introduction of Web 2.0 and social media, users went from being content consumers to being content creators. Social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram allow users to post product reviews, recommendations, etc. The emergence of online advertising became the lifeblood of an elaborate ecosystem of advertisers, publishers, platforms, and users. Think of advertising on Google or Facebook as examples. Moreover, more and more products themselves started to become digital, such as music downloads, ebooks, etc. From 2010 onwards, we saw further evolution, such as digital channels extending to mobile and everyday devices. A popular example is the introduction of the Internet of Things, whereby more and more devices are exchanging information through the Internet. All of these also led to a bigger digital footprint we leave behind, which can then be analyzed in ever more depth using analytics and big data technologies so as to drive key business decisions or create new strategic opportunities. We also witnessed the emergence of new digital entrants such as Uber, Airbnb, etc., shaking up existing business sectors such as the taxi and hotel business. Essentially, e-commerce is the process of buying and selling goods and services electronically. This could be accomplished using any electronic means, so not just the internet. A company can use e-commerce in two ways, either for buying goods or services from its suppliers or for selling goods or services to its customers. E-business then entails the combination of e-commerce and the use of the internet and other digital technologies for performing internal business processes and coordinating with suppliers and partners to create added value. Different types of e-commerce and e-business can now be distinguished. In business to consumer or B2C, products or services are sold to individual shoppers. An example is Amazon selling books, games, or music to end consumers. Business to business, or B2B, entails businesses collaborating by means of the internet. An example is Walmart, who uses the internet to buy products from suppliers such as Coca-Cola, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, etc. In consumer to consumer or C2C, consumers directly sell to each other. An example is eBay, where consumers can trade products amongst themselves. Three key features of e-commerce are ubiquity, richness, and reach. Let's elaborate on each of these into somewhat more detail. Ubiquity implies that all products and/or services become available everywhere, at all times, 24/7. Reach relates to the total number of users or customers an e-commerce business can obtain or reach. Using universal standards such as 3G, 4G, 5G, HTML5, and HTTP, customers across the whole world come within reach. For companies, this implies lower entry and search costs. Richness relates to the complexity and content of the message. By means of e-commerce, it becomes possible to accomplish two-way communication or interactivity between the merchant and consumer. The information density relates to the total amount and quality of information, which now becomes easily available to all market participants. This obviously strongly reduces the information asymmetry, which has a direct impact on price and cost transparency. A very nice consequence thereof is that it facilitates mass personalization and customization. It also creates the possibility for an almost unlimited price discrimination between consumers. Here you can see how commerce is typically done in general. A buyer finds a seller. This is followed by a selection of goods. A negotiation takes place, usually followed by a sale, payment, delivery of goods, and maybe some post-sale activity. Let's see how the internet changes this. To the left, you can see the digital tools that are available, and to the right, the digital trail of data that is collected. A search engine such as Google or online catalog can help in finding a seller. A recommender agent, product configurator, or shopping bot can help you select and configure the goods. An aggregator could be used to aggregate multiple orders of different customers so as to negotiate a better price. Automated agents can also assist in a negotiation. A transaction processor allows to make the transaction. The payment is facilitated using data interchange, cryptography to ensure safe data transmission, and e-payment systems such as PayPal. Tracking agents are used to track your order status. Online help facilities can be provided in various ways. Browser sharing means that your browser or computer can be controlled remotely so as to help you solve a particular problem. Internet telephony using Skype, Zoom, or Teams can also be used during the post-sale activity. It is obvious that various types of data are collected during this process, such as data relating to search behavior, browsing behavior, customer preferences, effectiveness of promotions, bargaining strategies, price sensitivities, personal data, market basket data, credit and payment information data, delivery requirements data, online problem reports, customer satisfaction data, and follow-up sales opportunities. All of this data can then be analyzed using analytics to better understand customer behavior. In terms of electronic delivery, a distinction needs to be made between the supply of services and products. Services can typically be 100% electronically delivered, which results into considerable cost reduction potential. Popular examples of services that can be electronically delivered are electronic banking, online securities trading, online job markets, and travel services. For products, electronic delivery is less straightforward, since there are only a few digitized products such as MP3s, ebooks, etc. For other types of products, a reliable, cost-effective physical delivery strategy is key to the success of e-commerce. Order fulfillment relates to all activities needed to provide customers with ordered goods and services, including related customer services such as handling complaints or product usage queries. Logistics relates to the operations involved in efficient and effective flow and storage of goods, services, and related information from point of origin to point of consumption. It is clear that the latter is a key challenge for successful e-commerce or e-business. Let's elaborate a bit further on the distinction between traditional versus e-logistics. Traditionally, large amounts of products or materials were sent to a few destinations, such as supermarkets or physical retailers. In e-logistics, typically small parcels with products are sent to many homes, using third-party logistics suppliers such as DHL, FedEx, etc. Do note that we also see a growing popularity of click and collect buying, whereby a customer configures his or her market basket online and then collects it at a physical location, such as a supermarket. Note that also facilities for reverse logistics should be available in case a damaged or the wrong product is delivered, which needs to be sent back. Let's now look at the types of companies in the new economy. Bricks and mortar or old economy companies are traditional companies based in the physical world only. These are traditional street-side businesses that offer products and services to customers face-to-face, such as a local grocery shop or a barber. A pure play or virtual organization is a company that's only engaged in electronic commerce. Examples are Netflix, Facebook, and Google. A clicks and mortar organization performs some e-commerce activities, yet its primary business is in the physical world. An example of this is Walmart. Let's now elaborate a bit further on the start of e-commerce and the famous dotcom bubble burst. In the early days of e-commerce, a typical dotcom company relied on network economies to justify losing money to build market or mindshare through giving its product or service away for free, hoping to eventually charge for it once it has accumulated a critical customer base. As always with new emerging technologies, this was also noted by shareholder investors. More specifically, it created a stock market bubble, which occurred when speculators noted the fast increase in value and decided to buy in anticipation of further rises rather than because the shares are undervalued because of a sound and solid business model. This bubble actually burst late 2000 and through 2001. Here you can see an example of a company that contributed to this burst. It concerns a company called Pets.com and was essentially based on a flawed business model, as illustrated by this quote from Philip Kaplan. You did not need to have a doctorate in economics to see that many of these .com companies wouldn't work. Take Pets.com, which sold pet supplies online. Imagine you just run out of dog food. What do? Do you run to the nearest hardware store and pick some up? Or do you go online, order it, then wait 4 to 6 weeks while your dog starves? However, do note that the dot-com bubble burst did not imply the failure of B2C altogether. More specifically, at the end of 2002, 40% of surviving dot-com dotcoms and 70% of online retailers in the US were reporting profits, which was promising. Amazon started making its first profits in the fourth quarter of 2001. The bottom graph shows the estimated quarterly retail e-commerce sales as a percentage of total quarterly retail sales between the first quarter of 2011 and the fourth quarter of 2020. You can clearly note an upward trend. Do note, though, that B2B represents a much larger share of the overall e-business revenue. This is illustrated by this quote. The value of global B2B e-commerce in 2018 was $21 trillion, whereas B2C e-commerce was valued at $4.4 trillion. How is B2B now different from B2C? Well, B2B usually is a more complex process that may involve extensive negotiation over prices, product specifications, etc. B2B relationships are often longer term, which creates higher stickiness between the B2B partners involved. It also typically requires IT system integration between the buyer and seller based on specialized technologies. The key focus of B2B is typically on realizing process cost efficiencies by streamlining processes amongst the various business partners involved. Finally, B2B is usually set up amongst a network of partners, creating a so-called collaborative commerce environment. Let's now also discuss some adoption barriers for e-commerce. Nowadays, large firms typically have their e-commerce businesses up and running. However, for small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs, the digital readiness is often a key problem since they usually have smaller budgets and the added value of the investment is not always that clear. Regulatory barriers in terms of trade agreements and/or exchange of data can also complicate things. Think about companies such as LinkedIn or YouTube, which are prohibited in certain countries. It also depends upon the suitability of the product and the need to feel and touch it. As an example, consider purchasing pants, which are typically less evident to buy online. New e-commerce companies also have to earn trust before customers will feel confident buying from them. This is especially true given all the malicious and fraudulent practices we can see on the internet nowadays. Finally, and unfortunately, there's still a key societal barrier often referred to as the digital divide. This refers to the socioeconomic differences between certain communities in their access to or ability to make effective use of digital technologies and the internet. Let's now discuss the economic impact of e-commerce. In what follows, we discuss the microeconomic impact of digitization, the impact on the value chain, the strategic impact, and the sharing economy. As said, let's first zoom in on the microeconomic impact of digitization. The internet has changed the economics of information in various ways. First of all, it shrinks the information asymmetry, since it is now easier for customers to obtain and compare pricing and other information simply by browsing a website from home. Next, it allows to extend both the reach and richness of the information provision. Digital channels such as the web are now capable of reaching a wider audience. There are also opportunities for mass personalization. Think of Amazon or Facebook, for example. Whenever you log on, you will see that the page is customized based upon your previous actions or browsing behavior. The internet also reduces transaction costs in various ways. For finding buyers, no mass mailing of expensive brochures or expensive TV and radio ads are needed. It can easily be accomplished using various means of online advertising, as we will discuss later. The internet also facilitates automatic collection of payments, using PayPal for example. In case of a digital product, it can also be easily delivered. Finally, support can be provided by using email, frequently asked questions, FAQ, and user forums instead of person-to-person interaction. Before we elaborate further on this, let's first take a look back at traditional industries with tangible products. In this case, the marginal cost, such as the cost of producing an extra product or assembling an extra car, increases as the production capacity becomes stretched. Hence, each competitor makes maximum profit when they set their production output to the level where the marginal cost meets the marginal revenue or market price. You can see this traditional economic cost structure illustrated here. The x-axis depicts the number of units, whereas the y-axis denotes the cost or revenue per unit. Remember, the average total cost is typically U-shaped. The marginal cost curve keeps on going up and the marginal revenue or price is assumed fixed. As said, profit maximization is achieved where the marginal cost equals the marginal revenue. Let's now look how this changes in markets for digital products or services such as software, music downloads or streaming services, etc. In fact, we almost have near zero marginal cost. In other words, the cost of an extra download or copy is negligible. Moreover, most of the costs are fixed costs and incurred early in the process. Obviously, this quickly creates an incentive to undercut the prices of the competitors in an attempt to grab the market with others following suit. However, this could imply that the fixed costs are no longer recovered, such that profits disappear. Here you can see this visualized. You can see that the marginal cost is nearly constant and low. Apart from the marginal costs approaching zero, digital products or services have some other characteristics. First, since there are no or few capacity constraints, nearly unlimited economics of scale can be realized. As an example, the cost of selling an additional MP3 song or ebook is almost zero. There may, however, be high fixed costs to obtain either the intellectual capital, the distribution of copyrights in case of music or movies, for example, or make the necessary investments in plant and equipment, such as hardware service, security software, etc. Do note that these fixed costs are typically incurred early and are usually not recoverable. Various strategies can now be adopted to avoid a downward price spiral, which will end up eroding profits of yourself and your competitors. An example is patenting your products or services such that other competitors cannot use them. Creating different versions of a product or service and motivating customers to upgrade at regular moments in time is another option. Creating network effects by means of viral marketing can also be a strategy to derive extra value. Finally, offering attractive product bundles could yield interesting cross-selling opportunities. I refer to the below paper for more information. Let's now take a look at the impact on the value chain. The first thing worth noting is that the internet offers a new distribution channel, which can obviously cause channel conflicts with other channels. More specifically, the internet has led to the unbundling of information from the traditional value chain channels. The internet creates a disintermediation effect by cutting out the middleman. By means of the internet, companies can now directly access their customers without having to go through other channels such as physical retail stores. The internet also creates a re-intermediation effect, since now new types of middlemen are needed, such as delivery services such as UPS, DHL, and FedEx. The internet has also changed relations with suppliers and other business partners, since now increased opportunities for integration of IT systems become possible. There are also lower entry barriers and typically also a lower setup cost. A web server, which can either be bought or rented, suffices to set up your own e-business. Finally, there is increased flexibility to choose your partners, so there are lower switching costs in case you want to change, for example, your payment transaction processor from PayPal to Stripe or any other company. Here you can see the firm value chain and industry value chain, also known as value system, visualized. The firm value chain consists of support activities such as organizational structure, development of product and technology, human resource management and procurement, and primary activities such as inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, sales and marketing, and customer service. The idea is then to combine all of these activities so as to yield a positive margin, which is the difference between the value added and the cost. The firm typically operates as part of a chain in an industry value chain, which consists of suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and end consumers. As said, since the internet provides an easy mechanism for direct interaction with the end consumer, a channel conflict may arise, which creates tension between different distribution chains for the same product or service. More specifically, a channel member may perceive another channel member to be engaged in behavior that prevents or impedes it from achieving its own goals. The web-based direct sales channel creates the risk of alienating traditional sales representatives or sales reps, which may result into internal conflicts, or distributors or retailers, which may result into external conflicts. To protect themselves, distributors or retailers may threaten with lockouts and no longer sell the products or services the e-commerce website directly sells online, or even lawsuits. Note that this disintermediation is typically not instantaneous, but occurs gradually. For disintermediation to be successful, it is important to placate partners in the distribution channel while taking steps towards the eventual demise of these relationships. One successful strategy could be channel cooperation. An example of this could be an online retailer allowing you to configure a product or service online and then referring you to an offline physical store in your neighborhood where this could be bought. You can see the disintermediation effect once more illustrated here. As you can see, the internet gives the manufacturer direct access to the end customer, hereby skipping the distributor and retailer, which results into significant lower purchase transaction costs. As said, re-intermediation causes a shift of the intermediary function in the value chain to new parties. Examples are delivery services such as DHL or UPS, or new intermediaries such as information brokers, e-marketplaces, or intelligent agents. We cover this more extensively later on. Let's now have a look at the strategic impact of the internet by reviewing Porter's 5 forces model. More specifically, 5 major forces of competition determine the industry structure, its attractiveness, and how economic value is divided amongst the industry players in a given industry. Porter noted that, for many firms, the internet has intensified most of these forces. Let's get into some more detail. The introduction of the internet lowers the bargaining power of the suppliers. More specifically, the rules are set by the brand and the suppliers have to closely follow the code of conduct specified. The bargaining power of the buyers is high, since they have almost no switching costs when picking another seller. The threat of substitute products is high, both from new online as well as offline shops offering competing products or services. Depending upon the setting, the threat of new entrants is low or high. It can be high in case high investments are required to build a brand image and create trust, as we illustrated earlier when we discussed the dotcom bubble. Typically, many online industries are characterized by high rivalry, since many players can be involved. Another strategic impact is that the internet has enabled the growth of the sharing economy, where a company does not make or own any products at all. The idea is to create an internet-enabled sharing platform. More specifically, tech platforms are used to allow consumers to make unused resources temporarily available to other consumers. Popular examples of resources are cars, bicycles, rooms, office space, and money, such as in peer-to-peer lending. Some well-known examples of companies in the sharing economy are Airbnb and Uber. The underlying idea of the sharing economy is to value access to resources rather than ownership of them. The claimed benefits are the possibility to save money and earn income, the reduced carbon footprint, and the strengthening of community ties. Obviously, this can create tensions with sector incumbents. Think about Airbnb versus hotels and Uber versus the taxi industry. Also note that many of these sharing economy firms bear the risk of turning into monopolistic platforms. Here you can see the Hilton hotel chain contrasted with Airbnb. Hilton took 93 years to build, operated 610,000 rooms in 88 countries, whereas Airbnb took 4 years to amass, operated 650,000 rooms in 192 countries. This clearly illustrates the strategic impact of the sharing economy.